Chapter 6. The Second Term. The second term had begun. The first day at school after the long summer holiday was always something of a novelty. Nobuo was glad to meet his teachers and fellow pupils again, but felt a bit shy. All his friends were a little reserved at first, too, but soon they were talking away happily like old times and starting their quarrels again. Everyone had so much stored up inside them that they wanted to tell, and the noise was terrific. But Yoshikawa was nowhere to be seen. Even if he had left school, one might have expected him to come to the school playground. He's late, Nobuo thought, but just then the vice monitor, Otake, who was standing close by, shouted loudly, "Hey, everybody! Do you know that Yoshikawa has left school?" All eyes immediately turned towards Otake. "What, Yoshikawa left? What happened?" The school bully Matsui came up to Otake with a look of surprise. "I bet his family have done a moonlight flit." Otake had never liked the idea of Nobuo and Yoshikawa being friends. The fact that Nobuo should prefer Yoshikawa to him, the vice monitor, made him angry. "A moonlight flit, eh?" Someone shouted in a hysterical tone, and everybody laughed. Nobuo felt as if he were being laughed at too. Another boy burst out, "No, they didn't do a flit. Yoshikawa's pa drank too much sake, and they've had to borrow a lot of money, I hear." "Shut up, stupid. They borrowed a lot of money and couldn't repay it, so they cleared out. That's what's called a moonlight flit." Otake laughed in a superior adult way. "No, someone said that he got drunk and had a quarrel and stabbed someone in the chest or shoulder or something. My grandmother says they've gone to Kyushu. No, I was told they'd gone to Niigata." Everybody told what they had heard. Having picked up the story by acute listening to their elders, they were discussing the matter just as excitedly as grown-ups. Lessons began, but Yoshikawa had still not arrived. "Have they really flitted? I'm sorry for them," thought Nobuo. He felt lonely as he gazed at Yoshikawa's empty seat in front of him. Why is Yoshikawa absent? Mr. Takura, the teacher who was waiting for them, glanced over the pupils' desks. "Yoshikawa's family have done a moonlight flit," Otake announced triumphantly. "A moonlight flit?" said Mr. Takura, and lapsed into silence. When lessons were over, he called Nobuo to the staff room. It was a hot afternoon, and somewhere a cicada was singing. "Nagano, do you know where Yoshikawa has gone?" "I don't know." Nobuo thought that Yoshikawa could only have gone to Ezo. But today, according to what his friends said, it could have been Kyushu or Niigata or anywhere. So Nobuo could not say for certain. And even if it was true that Yoshikawa had gone to Hokkaido, Nobuo was in no mind to tell anybody else. He remembered that Tosei had once said, "Hokkaido is the place for the penniless and people who have done wrong and have no other place to run to." What? You and Yoshikawa are good friends, and yet, well, children are a simple lot. "Fancy him not telling you where he was going," said Mr. Takura, laughing. Now Nobuo felt that both he and Yoshikawa were being laughed at, and he became angry. The teacher opened his fan sharply and began to fan himself vigorously. Yoshikawa's gone to Ezo," Nobuo blurted out without thinking. "What? Ezo? Hokkaido? I might have guessed, but surely they could have found a place to run away to without going as far away as Ezo. Nagano, who told you this?" "Yoshikawa. Is that so? But in that case, you, the monitor, have been telling lies, Nagano." Mr. Takura fanned himself even harder. "Telling lies?" Nobuo wondered, biting his lip. Seeing Nobuo's doubting face, the teacher continued. "Well, that's true, isn't it? I asked you where Yoshikawa had gone, and you said, 'I don't know,' didn't you? Why didn't you tell me straight away that he had gone to Hokkaido?" "I'm not a liar," thought Nobuo. "You know the saying, a samurai is true to his word." Now the Meiji period has come, and the samurai have cropped their hair. People have become a lot less truthful. But you as a monitor should set an example. Whether it was the sultry heat or the fact that one of his pupils had left without saying anything to him, Mr. Takura was in a bad mood. If I had said that Yoshikawa had gone to Hokkaido, it would have been hard on Yoshikawa, so I said nothing, thought Nobuo, as he stood listening to the teacher with downcast eyes. "Don't let me hear any more lies from you. You may go." The teacher turned back to his desk. Nobuo bowed and left the staff room. "I didn't tell a lie," he said to himself. He looked at the slightly frayed band of his kimono. "But, even though I didn't tell a lie," Nobuo thought with deep distress. It was not that he felt any animosity to the teacher, but he was worried that he had not been able to explain properly. Grown-ups, they can explain things all right. I wish I could turn into a grown-up quickly. Often afterwards, this thought came back to him, and it was a long time before the strong-willed Nobuo could forget his feeling of frustration. That day was unusually hot and sultry, as if the sun had fallen right down to the earth. It looks like rain this evening. Kiku was lighting the mosquito smoke coils on the veranda near Masayuki. Yes, Masayuki gently fanned himself. To Nobuo, his father always looked calm. However hot it was, he never used his fan in the energetic way that Mr. Takura did. Until recently, Nobuo had felt affectionately towards his father, but his feelings were changing. At mealtimes, for instance, it irritated him to watch Masayuki slowly munching pickles and sipping his tea. When his father spoke, he was tediously slow. It was difficult to communicate with him. Nobuo did not dislike him, but the more he wanted to speak to him, the more irritating he found his father's air of composure. "Father," he called. Masayuki gently fanned himself for a moment before looking at him and replying, "Yes, what is it?" Nobuo wished he would reply more quickly. "Well, what do you do when you want to make clear to somebody all you're thinking about?" Masayuki blinked a little and replied, "That's a big question." Then he changed the subject slightly. "What grade are you in now, Nobuo?" "The 4th grade." The 4th grade. Next year you will be in the 1st grade of high school. Well then, you should be able to speak for yourself on most matters. But I can't." And he described how he had been unable to explain when Mr. Takura had said he was a liar. "Is that so?" Masayuki gazed out over the garden for a while. "As I thought, it's going to rain." Masayuki's conversation was punctuated with the usual pauses. Nobuo, waiting for an answer, was growing impatient. "Nobuo, even when you grow up, you will find it difficult to express everything you feel, either in speech or in writing. But you must make your listeners understand more than you actually say. As well as the courage and effort needed in trying to make others understand, something else is needed. What do you think that is?" "I don't know." Nobuo cocked his head on one side. "It's sincerity. A sincere heart shines out of your words and passes on to others through your face," said Masayuki, and gently plied his fan again. A sincere heart, courage, effort. Nobuo pondered this and began to understand a little. "But father, there are times when sincerity won't work, aren't there?" "Yes, there are." Masayuki thought of how Tosei had never understood about Kiku's faith. "But it can't be helped. People's natures are all different. There are some people who do not understand what you are feeling, and others that you can't understand. The world is full of different types of people." But the thought still nagged Nobuo. It's terrible to be thought a liar. He looked at the thin smoke rising from the mosquito coil. "I'll read more books. If I do that, perhaps I'll be able to say what I think." From then on, he concentrated on reading, and the books gave him something of themselves. 2 or 3 days after this, when Nobuo returned from school, he saw 3 large pieces of luggage lying on the veranda. Kiku's nephew, Takashi Asada, had come from Osaka to enter university. He looked at Nobuo. "Humph, you look intelligent enough, but you are as skinny as grass growing in the shade," he said, not mincing matters. His body and voice were big, but his eyes were smiling, and Nobuo liked him from this first meeting. At supper time, he came to like him more. "Thank you, now I'll start." As soon as he sat down, Takashi took his chopsticks and began to shovel rice into his mouth. "Hey, we say grace here, Takashi," Nobuo nervously jogged his cousin. "What's that?" After he said this, Takashi looked up at everyone for the first time. Kiku began to pray as usual, but Takashi just went on calmly eating his food. When Kiku had finished praying, he said, "That's it, my aunt's a yaso." As he said this, he thrust his rice bowl, which he had emptied in 3 mouthfuls, across to Kiku to be refilled. "Well, I'm not a yaso, I don't pray," Takashi announced cheerfully. Nobuo gazed at him in amazement, and Machiko's eyes opened wide as she watched him. "If that's so, just do as you please," Kiku said simply. Takashi's statement had been unopposed and nobody had taken offense. Nobuo was impressed, but he was astounded at Takashi's next statement. "Ugh, these vegetables are too salty." Grandmother Tos had always taught that men should not say what they were thinking. Nobuo knew the saying, "A samurai should never show his feeling even when he is suffering." A man should never admit that he was hungry or lonely or that life was hard. To swallow down and conceal one's feelings was the first step in becoming a truly resolute person. Toes had said, "Don't let your thoughts appear on your face. A real man still laughs when he is weeping in his heart." She had also taught that it was only low-bred people who commented on whether their food was tasty or not. So when Takashi criticized the vegetables in such a casual way, Nobuo was completely dumbfounded. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I suppose Kanzai people like a different flavor?" Kiku waited on him as if nothing had happened. The ways of Kiku's family and the Nagano family were completely different. "It must be good to be able to say what you are thinking," thought Nobuo as he watched Masayuki silently using his chopsticks. At the next meal, too, Takashi ignored Kiku's prayer and began to eat straight away. But it would be wrong to imagine that he created a strained atmosphere by doing so. On the contrary, since Takashi had come to the Nagano home, it could be said that things had become brighter. "I like cousin Takashi," said Machiko, sitting on his big knees. In Takashi's room, a great number of books were arranged in an orderly manner. "I arranged them myself. If they're just put in anyhow, it's the very limit finding them," he said. "If you can find a book here you can read, go ahead. You're just the right age for books, so read anything you like," he told Nobuo. Takashi bought a magazine called The Children's Garden, a cheap paperback called Tales of Famous Warriors and Heroes, and Robinson Crusoe for Nobuo. He even borrowed some girls' magazines from somewhere for Nobuo to read. In one of them, Nobuo discovered that there were women who on their own initiative wrote articles and stories. He had thought that women only worked in the house like Tos and his mother, so this was a great discovery for him. The stories of the heroes were interesting, but what gripped him most was Robinson Crusoe. The endurance of Robinson Crusoe, cast up alone on a desert island, never giving up hope, held him spellbound. What would have happened if it had been me, he thought. Probably I would not have been able to live like Crusoe. If it had been me, he had learned that books could transport him far away. Then he read Shoyo Tsubuchi's book, The Spirit of the Modern Student, and other books like it. For Nobuo, who from quite a small boy had been taught the Analects of Confucius, reading adult novels was not difficult. From the novel The Spirit of the Modern Student, Nobuo picked up several English words and badly wanted to put them to use. Words like books, watch, and useful. He began to feel he had grown up and was becoming a little too cocksure. However, one day when he saw the German and English books that Takashi was reading, this cocksure feeling evaporated. He could not read a word of them. "Takashi?" Nobuo asked determinedly. "What? Please teach me English." "Do you know what you're saying? Please teach me German and English and things. You're just a kid. What grade are you in? The 4th grade. No, it's not possible yet. Why's that?" Nobuo was not giving up. "You'll study that when you go to high school. But in America and England, little children use English, don't they?" "Of course." "Well then, Japanese children can learn to use as much English as American and English children do," Nobuo said flatly. "You're an interesting kid, you are. Japanese children aren't less intelligent than foreign children, are they?" "No, but they live in a country where English is used every day. Of course, they learn it naturally. They repeat words again and again, and learn them that way. If you can learn words by using them again and again, there's nothing so hard about that, Takashi." At Nobuo's words, Takashi looked keenly at him. "You're a scrawny little thing, but you've got a wonderfully strong character." From that day, Takashi's opinion of Nobuo changed, and Nobuo began to learn English.